Well, it's funny because I grew up in that era because I grew up in a Christian home, and my mom would call everything demonic back in the day. Uh, you're right, mom. You're right. I think the difference is like the satanic panic era would be that maybe, and I guess I don't want to take too much credit for this kind of stuff, but I mean like the people who are doing videos like we are now, we usually have the receipts. Like we can explain why it's demonic because obviously you could have every church lady said that's the devil. Like obviously the old church lady skit on Saturday Night Live. Could it be Satan? Yeah, it could be. But like you have to be able to explain it to people, and then when you start to link the stuff together, I think the music is really what blew my mind from the very beginning. I was watching these videos from Good Fight Ministries, and they did this. They sold their souls for rock and roll documentary, and I was watching that one night, and they kind of set up who Aleister Crowley is or was, and then they kind of show his influence in all the music.
Oh
And so you
yeah,
guys,
it's not good.
but it's. I think the thing that blew me away is because I remember there was an old documentary when I grew up called Hell's Bells, and me and my friends made fun of it, and we're like everything's satanic and just like, but the way this, and I kind of thought it was going to be more of the same of that. But when you say like, okay, AC/DC satanic, all right, yeah, I mean, like most people would say, yeah, I guess. But even those kind of bands, people would say, oh, well, they're just doing it for effect, right? They're doing it to be shocking. They're doing it to, you know, make uptight Christians uncomfortable. But when they start to show like like a Lester Crowley, and they show you how evil this guy was, and then they show, hey, look, he's on Sergeant Pepper's album cover. Well, that's weird. That kind of makes me
That's so
uncomfortable.
weird, right?
Yeah. Then you start to hear Mr. Crowley and all these songs. The thing that blew me away, and I was actually going to do a podcast about this soon, was Led Zeppelin. I mean, because
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think most people would have no idea how satanic Led Zeppelin is because the songs don't see overtly satanic, not like, you know, well, maybe because you don't, maybe because we're not paying attention to the lyrics, but when they talk about how was it, Jimmy Page bought a Lester Crowley's
Oh
house.
yeah, dude.
uh,
There's so much to that. Go on.
Did you
Sorry,
ever
I
hear
didn't
that?
cut
So,
you off.
so that house was actually obviously not originally owned by Lester Crowley. So Lester Crowley owned a house on Loch Ness, Lake Loch Ness,
Yeah.
and and, um, and this property was supposedly built on, it was a former church property, and the church had burned down. Well, the church burned down with the congregation inside the church.
Oh my.
Yes. And so they actually had like a tunnel or like some kind of a thing where you could get to the house to a graveyard for the people who burned down in the church on that property. And so like I think Lester Crowley had people who worked for him, their kids died in that house. I think Jimmy Page had somebody associated with him die in that house. The guy who bought the house after them unalived himself. And then you're seeing like, oh my, like it gets way worse. And you're like, so why would anybody? I think even Jimmy Page bought a magic place or something like that that was formerly a Lester Crowley's.
You know what's so interesting about Led Zeppelin is like if you say something to 50 and older, and I say the statement, Led Zeppelin are frauds, okay? They'll lose their fucking skull. And I even use Led Zeppelin as like the pinnacle of like art. Like when I talk about LA comics, they're all Nickelback, but they walk around like they're Led Zeppelin, even because that is the standard. I mean, good friends of mine have always said Led Zeppelin is the greatest band ever. But when you really break down, there's so much of them is just fraud, dark shit, dude. It's like they stole so many songs and like they were so tapped into the dark energy that they
Mm-hmm.
really didn't even change the names of the songs they were stealing. They just didn't care because they were such playing ball. I mean, they stole from bluesmen left and right, dude, and didn't even change the name of the song. And then you find out like how